Cattle were made to eat grass, plants that humans can't eat or can't benefit from. And humans can get quality protein through beef raised on grass. What I'm saying, in many parts of the world, they grow maize to feed to cattle to fatten. Maize should be used for human consumption. Cattle eat grass. And this is what we should be doing here. So while we're on this, whether you're in the dry northeastern territory or Laikipia or the highlands, grazing can be done much the same way. I was brought up on the ranches in Laikipia and was told we should never stock more than 10 animals per acre. That is the carrying capacity for Laikipia and its rainfall, much the same in the Rift Valley and so on. And as you go north to the drier areas, it goes even more, 15, 20 acres per animal. That's how we were raised in the ranching industry. I want to prove now that with new methods coming in, we can do much better than that. And it's purely a management tool, not spending lots of money on infrastructure or anything. It's a simple grazing management that can improve it. Sorry. This thing's not... Right, we're there. I put this slide in just to show, it's not a great example, but probably 70% of Kenya is looking like this. A lot of people, you hear climate change, you hear droughts, and so on. But to me, it's grazing management that has got to this. Grasses, good grasses like to be grazed, but when you graze them to a certain point, they need to rest. They need to recover and grow again. What happens in our pastoral communities in the north and so on, grass does not get a chance to rest. It rains, they grow, they get eaten, and they get eaten until they disappear. And one ends up with bare ground, maybe a few shrubs in between, but there's no grass here. Why is that? Because the cattle have eaten them at the wrong time when they're trying to grow, and basically the roots have died and the grasses have disappeared. The worst thing about this is when it does rain, all the water runs to the bottom of the valley. So nothing grows. We lose any rain that we get, we lose it all. And it's only when you have a cover of grass and well-managed area is the rainfall soaked up in the ground. Retention, moisture retention. In these situations, there's no retention. It's all run down to the valley. And people blame drought, but it's not. You don't need much rain when you've got a good cover already in situ. So unfortunately, a lot of our country is like this. And I know through proper grazing management, we can change this around. And it's just how we go about it as Kenyans, as government, as communities. How do we improve our grazing management so that we turn these areas around into grasslands? They used to be grasslands, and we need to get back to that. And it'll take a lot of interaction between all of us and the communities to achieve that. That's one example. We move now to completely the opposite. I was talking about grazing in ranching conditions. In the past, the 10 acres to one beast meant if you had 10,000 acres, you could have 1,000 animals in that area for the whole year. And traditionally, we would bunch them in herds of 100, and with herders, graze them out from the boma. They have to be boma at night because of wildlife or stock theft. And they would graze out. The problem with that grazing system is the cattle become selective because they're grazing over a big area. They select the best grasses. And they'll continue with that, and they leave the less palatable grasses. What happens with the next range? The palatable, unpalatable grasses tend to prosper because they've been left alone. And so over the years, many years of ranching in that method, we have not really improved our carrying capacity on the ranches, simply because we're not managing the grazing tight enough. The cattle have been able to select. So in order to stop that selection process, these new ideas have come in from other parts of the world, namely Australia, South America, South Africa, where for many years they've been practicing this highly intensive grazing systems. And that intensivity is controlled by one electric wire. Very easy to set up, very mobile. The electricity comes from one panel and its box. The cattle have only to touch it once, and they know not to go close to that wire again. And you can control them very easily in tight bunches. So what you see here on the left-hand side is the last grazing. Depending on how many cattle you've got and how you've bunched them, this could probably move every 2 hours or so on. So maybe 1,000 cattle were in this patch for 2 hours. And what that has done, it hasn't melissaed the grass completely. There's still stems there, there's still grass there, there's still a cover on the ground. You don't see any bare ground. And you see a lot of manure put down. Because of that intensity of grazing, a lot of manure and urine has gone into that soil. What they tell us is, even though your grazing is very intensive, you should never let the cattle graze down to the ground. Always leave 6 inches of grass. And that will ensure fast regrowth, so that in your rotation system, you can come back to that area maybe in 3 months and have enough grass to graze. It's been fertilized by your animals, and therefore it'll be richer. All the unpalatable plants have also been grazed, which means the palatable ones will be stronger, and they will eventually take over. And the more you rotate, the richer your pasture gets. And as a result, your carrying capacity can increase. People say, well, that all depends on the rain. Yes, but you don't need so much rain. We've got to mitigate, maybe we're going to get less rain, or it's more unreliable, there'll be longer dry periods. When you have pasture like this, every drop of rainfall is conserved. Nothing runs. So you don't need a lot, because grasses can survive on quite a little. And we're not losing it like in the dry lands. So you can take advantage. Where places used to get 600 millimeters of rain, Maybe they're getting 400 now, but it's plenty for your grazing because everything's going in. And you've got your fertilizer from your animals. So you're just creating richer pasture every time you go by. So ranchers are doing this in what we call mob grazing. You'll see 1,000 animals in basically 2 acres at a time. They don't have a chance to select grass. They eat everything that's there. And yes, they take a little bit of time to adapt to that situation, but 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and they get used to it. And quite a few ranchers are doing this now, and it just means that they have realized that whereby they had 10 acres for each animal, they can triple their numbers easily by doing this method on the same piece of land. Because this grass will have time to rest as the cattle move on, and it'll grow because the moisture is retained, the fertilizer is in there, and so you can come back again much quicker than you would normally. Now this can be done not only on big spaces, it can be done on smallholders farms who are fenced off, 50 acres, 100 acres fenced off. You can do the same method, and we call that strip grazing. You might say, here's good country because there's a lot of rain. This photo was taken after the rain, so yes, it's green. I need to change over to the next. This is a small video on a smallholder who only has, I think it's only about 40 acres, and he's got 20 cattle that he's bought in to fatten on this small patch. And you will see they are confined by this electric wire into a very small patch, 20 animals, and they're confined within that area. So it's just doing the same. Whether you're on a big piece of land or small, you can do the same thing. And this, once he's rotated around his 40 acres, this method, he'll probably find he can have 40 animals next time. The grass will be healthier, bigger, and so on. So, and he's fattened these animals on that piece. They actually get fat on it. So it's a very, very good way for smallholders with 100, 200 acres to do this method. And you'll find that they could be possible to increase their carrying capacity to a huge extent. Whereby in the old days we used to say 100 acres, you can only have 10 animals. He's probably looking at 100 animals with this method. It's that efficient. And we're talking about utilizing the natural grasses. Now, if you want to expand on that, natural grasses can only produce so much bulk. They're good, but they can only produce so much bulk. If you want to bulk up on your pastures, you need to introduce specialized fodder, either for grazing or for cutting. What I like to see on any land that people have, whether it's irrigated or rain-fed, is fodder that is possible to graze. You can fatten, let me just move to the next. This is actually on a ranch in Laikipia, where they've grown sorghum, and they are strip grazing this sorghum, again intensively, to fatten their animals. So these animals here are purely for fattening. And by doing this, they have gained the 1.2 kilos a day that we expect to see in a feedlot. They can do it purely by grazing. There's no expense on using machinery to cut, to bale, to transport. The cattle are doing it themselves. Like my opening statement, we're not using fossil fuels to get beef. The cattle are making beef on their own. And this is one way, if you have a suitable area to grow high quality fodder, such as sorghum, high proteins, you can fatten animals on it by grazing. And it's all about timing, management, grazing it at the right time, not grazing it down to the floor. You can see behind, they're leaving 30 centimeters of sorghum. So that means that by the time they get through the whole lot, that they'll be able to return behind them and find that ready again to graze. It's a wonderful thing to see. It's just being introduced, this type of intensive grazing in Kenya, and it's somewhere that we can follow and produce more beef in our country. And this is one way to do it. And we can almost call it organically because it's pure grass, no other introductions, grain or anything being fed. And the whole idea is, at the end of this grazing thing, is to produce beef. This is a hind quarter of a grass-fed Baran steer, purely grass-fed, of the highest quality. White, even fat cover. This is what the consumers, the butchers, the consumers are looking for in quality beef. And you can get it from grazing. And that's what I try to pass on. 40 years of experience of not grazing 100% the right way. We've learned that there are better ways for increasing productivity. And Kenya should be adopting this to improve. We need more beef in this country. I think I can stop there. And then we'll be hopefully getting questions and be able to answer more things from there.
Thank you very much. Ibrahim, if you can help us get questions, we'll have him answer all the questions. Please have a seat. Thank you very much. Allow me to invite Mr. Wario so that he can lead in this panel discussion. Let's put our hands together for Mr. Wario, please. As Mr. Wario is making his way here, if you're one of the panelists, kindly make your way as he introduces you. Mr. Wario.
Let me also invite Dr. Richard Chumo from National Livestock Development and Promotion Services to the panel.
As agreed, we'll have a panel discussion for 30 minutes and then we'll have few minutes for questions. Thank you. Dr. Rio, you can take it up.
Thank you very much, Giles. You spoke passionately about this new approach of grazing. First question is directed to you. What is the difference between the new model or the approach to grazing vis-a-vis the conventional approach?
Okay, I hope I tried to explain that, but it's good to go over that again. Traditionally, even on the ranches or even going back to smallholders with 100 acres in a fence, traditionally they push 20, 30 animals into that small area paddock, leave them there all day, and pick them up maybe for the night and put them in a boma. Now, what those cattle are doing in that 100-acre area are just choosing the best plants and leaving alone the not so palatable plants. And slowly, slowly, your 100 acres will deteriorate, will become less and less palatable, less and less productive, and you won't be able to increase your stocking rate. So whether that's small area or big ranches, it comes to the same thing. We want to stop that cow selecting the best grasses. We want them to either eat or trample. What they don't eat, they're trampling with their hooves. And therefore, that encourages your good grasses to regrow better. That's the encouragement. And what I should have mentioned before is that trampling effect of cattle hooves on the ground breaks up the crust on the top, and that is what allows the retention of rainfall. All the rain you get is retained because of the action of the hooves in that small area. So those are the advantages that over the old traditional methods.
Thanks, Giles. Dr. Richard, you are quite passionate about rangeland restoration, and you've seen the status of our rangeland currently. Do you think this approach might provide an answer in terms of rehabilitating and restoring the rangeland in northern part of the country?
Thank you, Wario, and thank you for having this discussion. For fear of having to dominate the discussions, but these are topics which are very close to my heart. For one, I'm quite happy to see this concept being applied in Kenya today. I think the first person who piloted and demonstrated it works is Alon Safari, he is a Zimbabwean conservationist. And he promoted the concept, and I can approve it works. Apart from being a CEO of the National Livestock Development and Promotion Services, I'm also a livestock farmer in my own right. And I'm also applying this concept, but with some slight tweaks. Basically, I don't have a big land like you have. I have about close to 300 acres. And what I've done is I've paddocked it, and among the paddocks, there is 50-acre paddock, which I've reserved for purely pasture production. And the capacity of that farm, the market can accommodate practically now, using the natural carrying capacity, is only 50 heads of cattle. But due to that paddocking and a mixture of that paddocking and rotational grazing plus this pasture land, I've now improved the capacity of that land to accommodate up to 1,000 animals. That giving that background is personal information, but it's important to share here because it has a lot of bearing on what are the possibilities we have there in our rangelands. Our rangelands and our pasturates are not static. They are evolving. Our pasturates are also evolving. They are also adapting to the new challenges. And in the process, what traditionally they have always done by moving the animal from one point to another, we feel a time has come when we could tweak it a little bit to face the realities. And the reality is we have these rangelands which over time have not been handled the right way in terms of management. It's largely communal grazing systems. In the process, and according to documented science evidence, the communal land grazing systems, the animal, if they are lucky, the maximum they can extract from the grazing system, communal grazing systems, is up to 50%. There are others who are saying they only get 30%. The rest is wasted. But when you apply the rotational grazing system like what my elder brother is trying to do here, or what I'm also trying to do elsewhere, you increase that the level of utilization of the available fodder to almost over 90%. In the process, As this animal is extracting the 90% of that fodder, it's also defecating there, and through trembling, it's also loosening the soil, as he's explaining. So basically, yes, this is an avenue we need to start exploring as a country. How do we manage our rangelands going forward? And I'm quite encouraged by what the governor of Kajiado said in the opening day yesterday, that in Kajiado, he is implementing a program called modulated grazing system. Basically, what they are doing is, I'm not speaking for them, but I imagine what they are trying to do is to tweak the traditional pastoralism systems with the evolving realities that the population is growing, this land is shrinking, but these people are pastoralists, and somehow they have to make maximum use of their land. So how do you do it? I think this is a practical situation which we could explore seriously. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Giles, back to you. You've mentioned that Australia is doing this kind of grazing, and you had indicated that they are quite successful. What are the two things that we can learn from Australia if we were to replicate this kind of grazing in Kenya?
Basically, Australia have just proved that over the years they've increased their carrying capacity on the bits of land that have utilized these methods. As simple as that. They have learned, in Australia you have, tend to have a short rain season and a very long dry season. Even though there's no rain, by doing this method, they've discovered that their grasses can still grow even if there's no rain because of this method. It's so good at retaining moisture, and that if graze management is proper, there's no open spaces for the moisture to evaporate. So the soil retains the moisture much longer, which means the grasses can grow for much longer after the rains than normal. So, you know, there's no negative on this whole thing. It's all positive. And basically, beef production is all about kilos of beef produced per acre. Really, that's the way one should look at it, economically. And the more kilos of beef you can produce per acre, the more profitable the business is. And this is one way of making your business more profitable.
Thanks, Giles. Dr. Australia is not quite different from Kenya. In fact, we may be receiving more rains than Australia, even in our northern part of the country. And one of the key features of our pastoralism is a component of mobility, moving from one area to another. If you were to adopt this approach, what do you think pastoralists have to do in order to make it more effective based on their context?
Thank you. I think we just start from what I know. And after working the pastoralists for quite some time now, the most impactful processes are where you start from what they know, then you build them from there. We know they move from one point to another, adapting to the evolving grazing scenarios in terms of deficiency of the availability of fodder and water. So now, the way I see it is, and in the early 70s and early 80s, there was this concept of block grazing schemes. And the whole concept of the block grazing schemes was actually tailored toward making a similar or mimicking what my friend here has just presented. So we just need to go back and remind these pastorists what they were doing those years, that instead of moving freely now, deliberately, they should move in a structured way. We are not stopping them. We are not stopping their movement, but all what we are saying is, please now move in a structured way, because the realities happening now are such that if you move the way you have always moved, this land will not sustain these animals, and we will keep on getting the illusion that we have more animals in the country than the land can hold, which is not true. It's only the land which has been mismanaged, and we have to put efforts on reclaiming this land. And practically in my small farm, shown is very easy, is very practical to reclaim. I went to a gully, which actually the owner was willing to give me that gully free. But because I knew I'll reclaim it, I told her to pay something small so that later he doesn't come and claim it back. Now, You compare those pictures I took about 5 years ago and today, you see a totally different world. And these things can be replicated everywhere. And it's good you bring in the aspect of the rainfall quantities of Australia and northern Kenya. Sincerely, with the right management, land management systems, there's no part in northern Kenya which cannot sustain adequate animals to sustain the lives of those people. There isn't any. So it's all about land management, and we just need to go back on where we lost the track and try to correct it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Giles. You had indicated that in the conventional feedlot system, an animal is supposed to gain an average daily weight of 0.8 kg to 1.4 or 1.5. That is within an enclosure or within a feedlot. So you're saying, even with this kind of grazing, you're still able to match what you'll be able to get from a feedlot. So the question is, what do you have to do to make sure that if you want to fatten cow and you're thinking of perhaps feedlot, and with this new approach, what do you have to do to ensure that you're able to attain that daily average gain in terms of weight?
Yeah, good question, Abdi. When you're grazing cattle on pasture, remember that it's costing you very little, maybe the establishment of that pasture. And if you graze it properly, it'll grow again, and you've got several grazing cycles. You just got to compare that with what it's costing you in the feedlot to gain 1 kilo. And I think you'll see there's a huge difference. So don't expect to get 1.4 gain by grazing sorghum necessarily, but you'll definitely get your 1.1 kilo, 1.2 kilos. And you compare the cost of producing 1.4 in a feedlot and 1 kilo grazing, it's massive. It's a huge difference, and your margins are much bigger. If you're out to make profits, you'll see it much easier. So that's really what one should do, is compare the cost of feedlotting to establishing good fodder. And there are plenty of fodders available now. They're being developed in South Africa. The seeds are coming up to Kenya now and are available. Lots of different varieties that are suitable to your part of Kenya, whether it's very low rainfall, high rainfall, in between. All the different. Now in Laikipia, I've had experience of strip grazing ordinary Boma roads, the old Boma roads that Kenya's had for, I don't know, 40 years, maybe longer. It's not a great, very nutritious grass. But I have, by strip grazing this method on Boma roads, the right timing, of course, is essential. We have gained, with Baran steers, we've gained 1 kilo a day on Boma roads. So when you get a more nutritious fodder, which is available now, and more protein and so on, you can expect to get more by the same grazing methods. So actually, with the right management, there's not much difference between feedlot and improved grazing.
Just as a follow-up, Giles, you had indicated that the cost of putting up this kind of grazing is way cheaper, and the only thing that is involved is the electric wire and the solar panel. How much does it cost if, for instance, someone wants to put up this kind of grazing?
Yeah, very important. It's actually not a big capital outlay. So especially for smallholders with 300-400 acres maybe, you will not need much more than one panel with its energizer, 50,000 bob, the two come together. The polywire, it's called, which the line, the wire, is literally 5,000 bob for 500 meters. So on a small farm, you don't need very many. You might spend, and then you've got to have a few pegs and things on the way, you might not spend much more over 100,000 bob to set up this system for 200 animals, more, 300 animals. And it can do more. It can do 1,000 animals, that same system, costing you 100,000 bob. So it's not an expensive outlay. It's easily mobile, which you have to move it regularly. And it's very practical.
Coming back to Dr. Richard, what policy initiative does government need to drive in order to promote this approach among pastoralists?
Yeah, it goes back, and thank you for the question. It goes back to land management policies. And, you know, much of our northern rangelands, the land is still up to today owned, used communally. And that should be the starting point. And I always emphasize, start with what the pastorists know, so that you get a chance of your ideas being adopted. I strongly feel that if the pastorist sees value, and they can easily see, because those people who experience the block grazing systems are still there, although they are quite old now, but they're still there. And they can compare what was happening then and what is happening today. So the entry point is trying to bring those ideas so that we can sell this through, so that you don't get a backlash. That try to bring back the memories of the grazing blocks and compare how land then was more productive than it is today. Then from there, now we can, all of us, agree on how we move forward, so that it's not government designing the policies. These are policies we have engineered from the ground. It's coming from the owners of the land. Because it's difficult when you are dealing with communal lands as opposed to individual lands. Communal lands, you might need to get a greater part of the population aligned to your thinking, as opposed to individual lands where it's quite easy to push it through. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Giles, the last one for you. Does the breed matter in this kind of grazing? And if so, what will be the best breed for this kind of grazing?
Thank you, Warrior. Yeah, it's very important, I think, to realize to choose the right breed for your conditions. We are extremely lucky in Kenya to have the Baran as our base animal. And the Baran was basically developed in northeastern Kenya, Ethiopia, Somaliland, very dry country, where it developed an ability to benefit from very dry grass matter. It's one of the few breeds who can get fat on dry grass. And they have that ability which very few other breeds can match. So we are lucky to start with that breed. And with the natural pastures that we have in Kenya, that breed is basically the most efficient for that purpose, because it can utilize that grass and be productive on it. That's the trick, be productive. Kilos of beef per acre, that's what we're looking at. So the more you advance by improving your pasture through irrigation or so on, and you can introduce higher yielding fodder like sorghum and others, there's many others, and proteins, lucerne. You can now start increasing on your, or differing on your type of animal. You can go more for the European breeds, which are faster growing, but they need that improved pasture in order to gain faster. It's no point trying to introduce them to our natural grasses to get fat on. They'll take much longer than the Baran. So there are many different breeds available, and each one should be assessed for your particular situation. If you have an irrigated area with high quality fodder, you can go for the bigger breeds and grow your beef much quicker. You can be slaughtering your 250 kilo carcass in under 2 years, 16 months or something like that, 18 months, while our Baran on natural pasture will take 3 years. So you can see how you can improve your productivity, the more you can improve your pasture quality and your type of breed. But it's very important to match the breed to your situation. And there are many breeds to choose from, but our Baran will take on most. And what people do as they get better, they start crossing the Baran with one of these other breeds and use that hybrid vigor for the beef production. And it works extremely well. And because of this, the Baran is becoming a huge asset to countries like Southern Africa, all through Southern Africa, and now South America has found it and experienced it as a better animal to utilize their grasses than what they had before. And they are able to produce beef in a cheaper matter on the same piece of land. That's what the Baran is all about, and we're extremely fortunate to have it in our country here.
Thanks. As closing remarks, Dr. Richard, what is the key take-home from this conversation?
That we have a huge unexploited potential in the greatest part of the country is Assau. And through land management systems, we can improve the productivity of those lands to match any productivity anywhere in this world. And more importantly is to address the needs of our people living there and contribution to the economic development of the country.
Giles, maybe you can give us your closing remarks.
Thank you very much. I mean, what we're hoping people will learn about this is that we work towards producing more beef in Kenya. We're very short of beef in this country. We need to up the game, and especially, as the doctor said, in the northeastern area, which is our biggest cattle area, it's not that we don't have the available country or anything, it's purely management. And I hope this is a start towards improving that side of thing, and we see more beef, better quality beef produced in Kenya.
Thank you very much, Dr. Richard and Giles, for this interesting conversation. We would like to donate 5 minutes of ours to the participant in addition to their 10 minutes. Over to Angeshi.
Thank you very much, Wario. I think I would want to open it up for anyone who would have a question to ask the panelists. If there's any question, let me just pick the questions quite fast so that we only have 5 minutes. Your name?
My name is David Odwor Olode, and I would like to know the variety of sorghum you showed us there, so that we can now grow it, because the sorghum we have, you only harvest once and it's gone. But here, it seems to grow again and again and again. So I would like to know the variety of the sorghum. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I even hand it over to someone else to ask you a question, maybe I would ask you, livestock contribution to this country is 42% of the agricultural GDP, yeah? But the pastoralists and the ASAL community have 63% of poverty rates. Where is this wealth going to? Yet we are saying we are producing so much from the ASAL regions. You'll answer that question, but before that, let me take another question.
Thank you, the panelists. My name is Sally Chepkorir, and I come from Elgeyo Marakwet. I have one question. Building economy is not a walk in the park, right? What role does the organization play in conjunction with the Ministry of Agriculture in building capacity for the stakeholders so that they can improve on cattle rearing to better their lives and livelihood, especially those from rural areas.
Thank you very much. I'll take the last question. Let me just take the last question.
My name is Titus Kimeu, student Pwani University. As a young passionate about agribusiness, I would like to ask, what are the concrete job opportunities are there for youth and undergraduates like myself to be integrated into Kenya beef value chain? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you can take up the questions.
Can I start?
Yes, please.
And
Go
I want
ahead.
to start with the last one.
Sure.
Because deliberately I also feel quite encouraged when I see the young people creating interest here. Because this is the future of this country. And the issues we are discussing here, they are the people to run with them. And actually, it's not far-fetched and it's not unfounded. Other parts of the world who have done what we are talking about here, they are reaping huge benefits in terms of running the livestock and livestock businesses. So I will encourage any young and emerging entrepreneur to explore the possibility of, there are so many nuggets in the livestock space that anyone can hook into. But toward the end of the value chain, that's where many people are trying to rush. But there's this huge part of the production side where not many young people are going there. And I deliberately want to see young men trying actually to do what is doing in a small way, what I'm doing in a small way. I would wish to see young men and women going there to start rearing these goats, start rearing this poultry. This, at least a cow, I know these young men and women, they want money very quickly, they have no patience. But at least a goat or a poultry can give that money. And the demand is there. You just need to say you have 20 goats, and before the end of the day, the goats are gone. So explore the possibility of spending your time and energy, this time you are strong, on growing an entrepreneur program around livestock systems. There are so many of them. But where there is big virgin is on the primary production levels. The high end of it, there is a bit of congestion there, but down there, there is huge space for everybody. The other one is, and a very interesting and good question, is 42% of the GDP is contributed by livestock, yet in the livestock producing areas, it has the highest poverty levels, for sure. And that poverty levels are being contributed by the same issues we are discussing here. That the land over time has been mismanaged for a very long time, or not to be hard on the users of the land. They have lacked guidance. Actually, that's a better one. They have lacked guidance on how to use this land in a better way. And that's why it reinforces the usual narrative of we need deliberate investment in these areas so that we can realize their full potential. That targeted and deliberate investment is so key so that we start reversing these negative trends so that people who are living in poverty, in actual sense, they should not be. It's only that the support systems to enable them have a positive trajectory of growth have been quite minimal. And that's why they find themselves in that state. I want to leave the sorghum variety to my friend to deal with it.
The gentleman asked which fodder have we illustrated on my slide here. This is actually sweet sorghum. And the thing with sweet sorghum, if you graze it at the right time, you can come back to it several times. And the actual plant will last about 18 months. But in that 18 months, you can probably graze it 5 or 6 times. That's how productive it is. But after 18 months, you'll have to replace it, this particular sorghum. That's one advantage of it. It's not cut and start again. It'll last about 18 months. Does that, I hope that's answered your question.
I think we'll have a lot of time tomorrow, and so I encourage all of them to also come into tomorrow for any other masterclass. And I think maybe it would be important.
I'm being reminded there's
Yes.
one question from our lady from West
Sure.
Marakwet. We never dealt with it.
Please.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Please let me do it.
Please.
Yeah, capacity building. What are we doing? Capacity building is a big and an essential intervention if we have to unlock all these potentials, where we have to be deliberate on it. We have to go and build capacity to our farmers, to our pastorists in all these areas, so that we guide them the right way on how to optimize on the potentials of their lands. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, let's clap for this team from Gatsby Africa. Thank you very much. I don't know whether you'd want to share any information of anyone who'd want to reach you. That would be important. An email, website, that would help. Wario?
Thank you very much, Wangeshi. The way we work at Gatsby Africa, we work with government and businesses, and we follow opportunities. But we don't support individual activities. We can support individual activities as long as it's built on enterprise. And therefore, our delivery model is a bit different. So we go and explore and take a number of initiatives, look at opportunities. Is this aligned with our strategy? If it's aligned, then we will have an engagement. That is how we work. But I think if you want to learn more about Gatsby, you can go to our website and you will get a lot of information on the website.
Thank you very much. That was a question from the gentleman. Please stand. That's why I asked for that information. It was a question from him.
My name is Francis Kirago. I'm a new feedlot farmer. And therefore, when he started talking about grazing and fattening, I was a bit confused because I had come to listen about financing, which he seems to be alluding to, but nobody has talked about it unless you talked about it yesterday. You know, you have talked about what you do, but different from what he presented. Would you like to say something about financing businesses?
Yes.
Walio in particular.
Wangeshi, if you allow me.
Yeah,
please. I would really like to talk about financing, and especially financing for these similar efforts we are involved in here. Financing in the livestock investments, in the livestock enterprises. And a feedlot becomes a priority area where resources could be targeted in terms of financing. I would make reference, or I would refer you to a government program called DRIVE. DRIVE is the de-risking, inclusion, and value enhancement of pastoral communities. They have two components in that project. They have a component of ensuring the animals to protect them against the effects of drought, and they have a component of injecting capital support to livestock enterprises related to livestock and pastoralism. So it's a government project. So you have every opportunity to go and engage with the people who are running with it. It's being implemented by the KDC, Kenya Development Corporation. So you can approach them to do that. But that is on a smaller scale. Globally now, the financing in the livestock space has never been favorable to many of the financiers. And these are some of the myths we want to demystify as we engage in these forums. Because it has been regarded as a high-risk investment area, so many of the financiers have been shying away from putting serious credit lines in here. But we are trying to educate them also. They also need capacity building to inform them that if this is done the right way, these people should be able to pay it back. And through the capacity building aspects, we are able to address that, both from the person who needs the support, and two, the person who wants to provide the support, but he or she is quite shy because of the perceived high investment risks.
Thank you very much. I think we continue to learn. I hope you have learned something from today's or from the presentation and since morning. It's now my pleasure to thank you people, but also introduce the next session.